Welcome back to the Creating Resilience video series. This is number 18 in the video series. Today, we're going to be talking more about emotional regulation. Not just your own regulation, because we talked about that some in caregiver reflection and regulation, but also understanding regulation with other people and maybe helping them understand their own regulation. Regulation really is the ability to increase or decrease our energy so that we can be effective in our lives. We talked about in caregiver reflection and regulation, really just reflecting about how high or low your energy is right now and how comfortable that feels in your body and how good a match that is for what's going on around you. That is part of regulation for other people to understand as well. It's really important that we not only understand that ourselves, but we can teach that to other people. Because adversity and stress really can impact regulation. So if our caregivers are not present and they can't help children learn how to self-soothe, it creates an issue where those children don't understand how to regulate. Caregivers might not be present for several different reasons. They could be overly stressed. They could be really, really busy with what they're doing in their lives, just trying to hold down a few jobs and keep their children fed. It could be that they are abusing some sort of drug or substance that makes them kind of detached from their own emotions. Or it could be that they have been emotionally neglectful and do not interact with their children. But if you think about how most of us take a child that might be crying and we rock them or we bounce them and we give them a passy. We do something to teach them how to regulate from that high intensity emotion and come down and bring to calm. But some people didn't have that when they were growing up. And unfortunately, some people became very overwhelmed by their stress and they resort to less helpful things, different ways to self-soothe so that they feel calmer, but in fact, they've just masked what the problem is. We talked in caregiver reflection and regulation about understanding our own arousal and regulation, and that we all have a comfort zone and we all have tolerable zones of energy levels that we can tolerate and even manageable ones. We don't like being there, but we can do it. And that the way that we are able to tolerate those is that we have skills that we know we can use that bring us back to that comfort zone. We talked about that in reflection and regulation of ourselves. But we also have to understand dysregulation because sometimes other people that we're working with do not know how to come back and feel regulated for several reasons. First of all, if somebody's really dysregulated, that comfort zone is not really just a comfort zone. That comfort zone is their safety zone. It's the only place where they truly feel safe. That zone might be either really low energy, where they're over controlling and they're really shut down and they're disengaged, or it might be that that's the type of person that needs to have all sorts of motion going on all the time and like to be surrounded by a lot of things happening all at once. Either one of those two can be very one-sided. And then there might be a tolerable zone of different energy level that they can put up with. But that manageable zone becomes the danger zone where they don't feel comfortable at all. In fact, they feel threatened. So if somebody is very used to being very shut down, if they go into a shopping center or they go into a workplace meeting where there's a lot of people talking at once, it's not only that that's uncomfortable, that actually feels dangerous to them. So it might tip them into their trunk of their brain. The opposite with physical arousal, if somebody likes a lot of energy going on and that's where they feel safe, is when there's a lot of things going on. If you put them into a quiet environment, say a classroom or a workspace where everyone's supposed to sit still and be quiet, that might be a danger zone for them. So it's really very interesting. The other thing is that that safety zone can become very, very slim. So most of the time, somebody that's very dysregulated feels like there's threat around them. They're in their danger zone. And there's only a very certain amount of energy that feels really safe for them. So over control or shutting down might look like somebody that does a lot of things to numb themselves. They shut down their emotions, they try to not get involved with things, they avoid other people in certain situations. They might not like to have a lot of distraction around them. They like it just to be really quiet and calm. And they also might really be isolated a lot. Sometimes we see people that fantasy and daydream. Sometimes that's a fine thing to do, but people that are doing that constantly, a lot of times that's where they feel really safe. They feel more numb and isolated in that fantasy realm. Managing arousal with stimulation is somebody that is just physically moving a lot. There's a lot of, I've been on Zooms with people that, they're doing this the whole time. It's almost distracting because they're moving so much, but that's their safety zone or their comfort zone. Sometimes it comes across as aggressiveness or even excessive silliness. Sometimes if people need a lot of movement, you'll see constant rocking or swaying going on, or that leg that just never, 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 never stops. And unfortunately, you do sometimes see very sexualized behaviors with arousal. And so somebody is very promiscuous. Unfortunately, these strategies fail sometimes even. So when they do, people might turn to substance abuse so that then they can either bring themselves way up to get that stimulation or it numbs everything out. There might be some sort of eating control or discontrol. Eating control means that you're only eating certain things at certain times, and discontrol means you just eat whatever whenever. There is no control whatsoever. And unfortunately, sometimes when other strategies fail, people do turn to some form of self-harm, whether that's a physical self-harm or emotional self-harm, or even suicide or the ideation of suicide. The individual differences are so huge. And so it's really important to not only understand this in yourself, but to understand it with other people and maybe even be able to help them understand it. My comfort zone where I like to be might be somebody else's safety zone, and they need to have that much energy in their life. My tolerable or manageable zone might be somebody else's danger zone. They cannot be in that. It's just really important to understand that our individual differences really change how we interact with each other and how different people regulate at different times. What feels comfortable to one may not to somebody else. And finding ways to be in the same space with people that might have different energy levels, but very definitely understanding that my comfort level might be somebody else's safety zone and my uncomfortable might be somebody else's danger zone. That's very important to remember when we're working with people around us, whether they're friends or family or coworkers. Your reflection question today is, what energy level does feel most comfortable for you? And you can choose either at work or at home or both. And the action step is to really begin to recognize when you are starting to move out of that comfort zone or your safety zone throughout the day. What is happening? Is there a pattern to that when you're moving out of that comfort or safety zone, or is there a trigger that's doing it? So, really putting this reflection about yourself into action. If you really want to do a lot with the action step, you might watch other people too. Once you understand yourself, you can start to understand where are other people feeling at different points of the day. Thank you again for being part of this video series. I hope it's helping you learn new knowledge and put that knowledge into action.